This week's Ask the Mead Maker is a super special treat. It is my stand-up comedy debut in its entirety, filmed a few weeks back. The problem is the audio quality is hit or miss. It's okay, but we highly recommend that you turn on closed captioning so you don't miss a word.
So, many of you have been here before, and you know that we are like the only brewery in the state of Vermont that regularly has children running around, which is handy for me, because that's my fault. Small humans. I was a nanny for years. I love children. Which is super handy, because what I actually deal with every day is drunk people, and they're the same. Like, I have a friend who's drunk all the time. Not when she's drunk. Every other time. And she was living with this man, but a 3-year-old, and she said, I hate kids. And I said, how is that possible? She goes, they say the stupidest things. And I said, give me an example. She goes, so the other day, he runs up and goes, Nicole, I have knees. And she goes, how stupid is that? And I'm like, see, that would be great. That is gold in my industry. Because I can start a conversation from that. I'd be like, me too! The crap I have to hear from people is terrible. Because they all, like, children are not pretend they're not children. Drunk people all have to pretend they're not drunk when they're talking to me. It's like, by law, I have to stop serving them. In our industry, I don't know how many people there have had Valkyrie's Choice, but it's 9.2% alcohol and drinks like a light lager. We call it the BC swagger at Brewfest. Because they argue with you. They swear on their lives. There can't be this much alcohol. And then they do that walk. And they grab a hold of something. And they ask for another drink, and you say it 3 times, it's your last one. Which is the same talk I have with kids. Like, no more cookies. And they know I still have them. The cats are right there. It's no mystery. We still have alcohol. So what I have started to develop is like an intense knowledge about people's drunk tics. They're like universal drunk tells, and then there are really specific ones. And those are the really handy ones to have. My favorite universal drunk tic, also shared by children, is the whispering. They'll just decide in the middle of like a normal conversation to tell you something like, I know. You can't be a priest about this and be like, that's my child. You just have to wait, you know? I know. And you're waiting, right? You're like, he's gonna say, I don't love my wife. Like, it's gonna be something that's like, I can't get into True Blood. This is a child, like, which is understandable. But like, grown-ups too, they have these things like, mine is Game of Thrones. Like, if I get a little bit drunk, I will announce, like, I can't get behind Game of Thrones, which sucks for next me, right? But the problem is, like, in addition to like a million careers I've had, I was also a chaplain, and it seems like people can see that as a threat at distance. Like, they know that I am their confessional, and it's like, it's not just the, I can't get into True Blood kind of conversation. Like, I get all sorts of stuff, which I'm not according to like regulations allowed to share here, but we're going to talk about a few that I heard. So there's a gentleman in the audience tonight who, about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, we weren't open yet, walks in at 2 on a Thursday afternoon. It's his moral equivalent of, my wife left me. He's with a very nice lady, how she's here tonight. Like, at the time, all I could think was, we're behind Costco. There's so many bars, but you're here on a Tuesday afternoon. And that is a sacred trust that has just been handed to me. So I've cataloged over the years my favorite drunk tics. So I will tell you some of my personal drunk tics, which are unique as far as I know to me. I will tell you in a minute. But I'm going to tell you about my two favorite that I've gotten from staff members so far. The first comes from my former intern. She told me she had a friend. I did eventually. Whenever he got a little drunk, would remember that he had a favorite freckle. This one, right there. And it's all he could talk about at parties. And so she'd look, and she'd just see him across the room start to point to his arm and go, oh God, no. Oh, we gotta get him home. And get across the room. Which I like because it's creative. It's a unique drunk tick. Waiting for mine. So the other is my working favorite. And it's complicated because it is both a drunk tick and an exit strategy. So you're out with your friends. Another one of my staff members. You're out with your friends and you are done. And so what you do, see, I didn't drink until I was legal, so I missed out on all these great ideas. And you're at a club, which I've never been to except during the day, which are late. And what you do is you need to get out. And so you say, I'm going to the bathroom, but that's not enough. You dance out. Because they won't trust you if you're not dancing, I was told. And I got an example of the dance. The exit dance. It's the elbow to elbow rock. And you can leave safely. Now this isn't something in my life that I need to deal with because I go to bed at like 8 o'clock. This is past my bedtime. Which leads me to my drug tics. I have one. It's got a variant, which we will come to. For 11 months of the year, my beloved spouse dreads this set of words. I feel like watching the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Because it means I'm about to cry. I'm about to sit down with a drink in my hand and cry for no good reason. Except I'm watching Winnie the Pooh. It is great Winnie the Pooh. There's nothing sad in Winnie the Pooh, but it's so emotional. The variant is the entire month of December, where she just accepts that I can't safely drive to work sober because I will probably be listening to some Muppet soundtrack and crying in a car. But there are so many universal drunk tics that people I don't feel they acknowledge. People come up with awkward teenage ways to impress their friends when they're drunk. Like, you regress to exactly 15 years old. I will give you two of my examples that I did personally. Unfortunately, both sober. One, I was standing in front of a bunch of strangers and one friend, which is the worst combination. And I go, hey guys, you know what I can do? And I didn't know if this was true. Which is what I'm saying. Have you ever seen Babe? In the movie Babe? Remember those mice that sing between movies? And my friend just looks at me and goes, I sing exactly like those mice. Not a bass. The mice are not. I mean, like, traditionally, basses. I look at this group of people, and I wish I had a drink, because now you have to, right? But I look at them and I'm like, I gotta commit to it. Jewish persuasion. I was with a group of people, and same brilliant revelation, I knew I could do a thing. I said, you know, I can stick $2 worth of quarters up my nose. I can. It's great if you run out of change for the parking meter because nobody wants the quarters back. So, I'm going to tell you about perhaps my worst personal drunk tick. I have a lot of degrees and a lot of things. Here I am Jewish. This is half Jewish, but that's enough to have a Grammy who calls me sometimes and says, "Don't you just think you'll want an MBA?" And I'll say, "Why?" And she says, "Don't you think you'll just want one? Maybe if you apply for another job. I own the place you're standing in. God willing, if I ever apply for another job, it will be as follows. Hi, you know me from TV." Like, that should be the interview. MBA will not help. But because I think of all these degrees and the fact that I get up early in the morning every day and read a lot of Charles Dickens and Jane Austen, I forget what words people know. And I seem like an asshole. But just recently, I had a bunch of people here at the meat hall. No, I couldn't at the meat hall, I didn't drink here. I was somewhere else, I never been here. And I'm in the middle of a story about my rowing career, and I use the term riparian denizen. I could have said turtle. But I didn't say turtle, I said riparian denizen, that creature which lives by a waterway. I'm not an asshole, I just forgot. And if you think I'm trying to impress you, I will tell you another sentence I delivered recently, though. This one was to staff, so I need a moment. So I use the term osculation in conversation. Osculation means to kiss. But I don't say to kiss. My interns, it's their first week. And one of them says, "What's osculation?" Ready? It's the technical term for labial contact. Now I'll have to explain labial. It means that which has lips. And now we have to revert to our sexual harassment policy. I wrote all the rest of the handbook, but I was not allowed to write the sexual harassment part. Not because I am prone to it, but because Eric, the brewer, and I had spent an afternoon and we came up with the perfect title for it. It was called Sexual Harassment, a Hands-On Approach. And the boss says, "No." But I want to talk about one more, my favorite universal drunk tip. Something that everyone I know does at some point. It's when you become your own worst enemy. But not in the way that, like, the people at Dare tell you about. Like, one drink buys the next. Bitch. They all cost me money. No, it's when, and I will give you my example. This was a week ago. I'm working at home. I turn to my wife and I go, "Do you know what song I hate?" "Skinner-Minky Dinky Dink, that song you learned when you were a kid, I hate that song." And then I sing it at her. So it's in my head the rest of the night. And I'm so angry at me. Like, everyone I know has done this to me. You know what makes me so angry? that I had this whole list of things that I do when I am drunk and get nervous, which is pretty much never. I don't like it. I like to remember and be very aware of everything I'm doing. I'm gonna say Jewish thing again. But what I realized was you go through all these hard days, and you're gonna have a room full of people that are like actively monitoring themselves in a place where I'd like you to drink more. Don't overthink it. So I was like trying to think of like a good solid joke to like nail it. So you guys weren't left thinking, I'm an asshole when I'm drunk. Because we all are. We're all like children when we drink too much. And we all have different varieties, and that's okay. Most of us like kids. Maybe we could get used to drunk people, or vice versa. Like my friend Nicole, she likes drunk people. She could get used to children that way. Sort of cross-training. But I realized like I had nothing positive to leave you with, which is why I like wanted to tell you guys about my